Welcome to the Wild Type Podcast. I'm Neptune the Chameleon.
I'm Lyssa Lizards.
And we're your reptile girlies. Welcome back, ladies and gents, to another episode.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Tuesday.
First things first, nails.
Very important. Very important. They are stunning.
You went chrome and I went chrome.
I know, we both went chrome, which makes sense for the new year, right?
Yeah.
That feels very, very good for it. Mine are silver chrome tips, which I'm not going to lie, this might be one of my favorite ones I've ever done.
So I have thoughts on this because when I was deciding what I was going to do, I was thinking gold chrome, full gold chrome, because I felt like silver was too on the head with New Year's.
Yeah.
Then I felt like a full gold chrome was
I feel like
a lot.
Really pretty too, though.
It's just a lot.
I get it.
Right?
I get it.
So seeing you do it with the French tips is the perfect.
No, I agree.
Perfect compromise. And you still get it, but it's not
100%
too flashy.
And just to give my nail girl credit, because she deserves all the credit, I hardly ever pick what I want to do for my nails anymore because she knows me so well and she knows what I like and don't like.
I love that for you.
Oh, I've been going to this girl for 4 years. I'm obsessed with her, and she literally, I'll come in now and she's like, oh, so what are we thinking? And if I am thinking something specific, we'll do it. But lately I've just been like, what are you thinking, Rosie? What do you want to do?
So she's only asking it to be polite. She really doesn't want to know your answer. She already has something in her head.
100%. And 90% of the time I'll ask her, Rosie, what do you want? She looks at me and she's like, we have options. And she'll pull out 3 photos of things. Or sometimes she'll just be like, this time she didn't pull out anything. She goes, silver chrome tips. And I was like, great.
I think they're fantastic. I went pink,
but
it's with unicorn chrome.
So it's got
the rainbowy to it, because I wanted pink and I wanted chrome, and this just makes me happy.
This might be one of my favorite chromes I've seen. My favorite, other than the silver, is also a lavender, but
yes,
I haven't done a pink.
I did the lavender. This is
a
similar
vibes, kind of the pastel pinks with the rainbow iridescence. It's such a vibe. I love it.
I honestly might find a new nail salon because
really?
I think I've gotten the reputation, unfortunately, of being very particular.
You're the picky girl,
and I hate that. But also,
that's so funny.
They're my nails.
Yeah,
and I have to look at them.
You have to be picky sometimes.
Because the last guy I saw, not this set, but the one before, was like, hey, I really like it, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I know. He had never even done my nails before, which means
they're talking about you.
Either I heard him wrong or they're talking about me. And I don't know how I feel about that. And then when I went and got these done, the day before, I literally had snapped a nail off to the point where the skin was ripped.
Oh,
so it was bleeding and
that's rough.
It's an actual
issue,
open wound.
Yeah.
And the lady was filing, and she they go so she kept hurting me, and then she sprayed alcohol on it, and I was like, ow. And it's because it's a literal
open wound,
right?
Yeah, you got to be careful with that.
So I kept having to remind her to stop.
Be careful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then she would forget, and then I would feel bad, but also my finger is a literal
it's on fire.
Yes. And then I feel bad, and then I could tell was getting annoyed with me, and I'm like, but it's a literal
I wouldn't be complaining
wound.
if you listened to me the first time.
Yeah.
I know. It's tough. They get
so
moving.
I feel like I need to leave.
Well, you can always go to my girl. I drive a little bit extra for her, but she is so worth it. She's the best.
I feel bad. But also they're fabulous. It's because I have
Don't be upset.
them how I want them.
Yes. Absolutely.
Anyways.
That's critically important.
So the reason why quick mood change here. Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
The reason why I really needed happy nails is because by the time we are filming this podcast, it's been about a week since Neptune's passed, and I'm going to breeze over this really quickly because I really don't want to cry on the podcast, but that happened, and so sometimes you just need...
You need something to bring your moods up, to lift your spirits, and you need something that is
the little wins.
And the best part about the little wins of nail art is that it lasts for a few weeks.
Yeah.
And so you've got a little bit of happiness.
I needed the pink.
Yes.
And I needed the happy.
That's very important when you're going through something as hard as what you're going through.
And I very much will talk about this later on the podcast. Now is not the time because I will literally burst into tears. And I know you've gone through your stuff with Barney. So unfortunately, we are both well versed in elderly reptiles. And it's like one of those things where it's such an honor to be able to experience that, but it's like absolutely terrible.
Yeah. And we do want to do an episode in the future talking about caring for elderly reptiles in general. So just know that will be coming.
Just not for a while.
Yeah. It's funny because we've talked about doing it in the past, and when we initially wanted to do it, I wasn't ready to talk about it all yet. And now you're not even close to talking about it yet. So we'll get there. Just give us all a little bit of patience, a little bit of time. You guys know we share pretty much everything with you guys at this point.
In due time.
Yeah.
In due time. And I just want to say like a big thank you to the community when I publicly shared that Neptune had passed.
It was huge.
I was like overwhelmed. Like hundreds of comments of people who like messaged me directly, who like people I've never even heard of before, telling me the impact, and like literally moved me to tears, and was like really special. So again, I'm like, I can feel the emotions.
I am too.
So I just want to say thank you. Okay. And we will get into it down the line. And then also I was recently awarded with the Heart Award, which is from the Chameleon Forum. So this is like a very, very like niche part of the community, but it's like my community. And so the Forums gives out this award annually to anyone who has had like an extraordinary impact or contribution to the chameleon community. And I was like lucky enough to be nominated and given that award this year. And like this is something that I've like looked up to, and the recipients of this year, or of this award previous years, are people that I admire. So to have my name alongside is just like really special.
So she sent me kind of like the link to the award, because I'm not a part of the Chameleon Forums. I have been in the past, but I've never been like an active participant or anything. But you sent me the link, and I like read what they wrote, and it was just so kind and so special. And the timing of it all, I feel like, was very like oddly poetic, and just, I don't know. I'm just very proud of you. I'm very proud of all that Neptune accomplished and what you guys have done for the community. And just seeing that recognized, I think was really, really special.
And it's so easy. And I think I put this in like my response to the award. It's so easy to get like caught up in like you're in your home, or you're on this little teeny part of the internet, and you're like, am I making a difference? And I have spent thousands of hours, thousands of dollars, like making this content and helping thousands of keepers. And it's so easy when you talk to other reptile keepers of like, you should do more than just chameleons, you should do this, you should do this. I'm like, but I don't want to.
No.
Like, this is what brings me joy in like the chameleon community. And so it was just really special to be recognized
in that community that you have poured your heart and soul into, to have them kind of look at you and be like, hey, we see you too. Like, it's not just, you know, your little tiny corner of the internet. It's like you're like, they see you, they hear you, they understand, and they get you. I think that's really special.
So a big thank you for that as well, because that was unexpected and like really special. And like you said, the timing of it,
the timing could not have been more poetic. I mean, it was perfect timing, and very, very well deserved always.
So we will get into that more so.
But feelings are fresh, so give us a little time and patience.
Like the little finger cut, the wounds are very very open.
Handle with care.
The lady with her nail file, and then the alcohol. I'm like, come on.
You could have just, not with the alcohol. Like, that really
3 times.
That's crazy.
Not once.
Too much.
Once I'm like, I get it. 3, come on. Anyways, and then I also wanted to bring up, we recently did the episode on reptiles that bite.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've been seeing the comments of people and like their experiences with reptile biting. And I just want to give a shout out to bearded dragons.
Okay, yeah. I feel like we didn't even discuss bearded dragons in that episode
neither of us own
because we don't have one.
Bearded dragons.
Yeah, but I think, and again, I think I said in that episode that like the worst bite I ever got was from my blue-tongued skink. So it would stand to reason that beardies that are not necessarily the same, but like
their head shape though,
similar
and
head shape. Well,
and like
Nilla's a northern, which is also from Australia, so
and
it's
their
like
diets like
kind of similar
in the same,
whatever. It's like I totally could see beardies being intensely painful biters, and that stood to reason in our comments.
So many people were like, a bearded dragon bite is like
worst.
really bad. So that was interesting, and everyone agreed that like a lizard bite is way worse than snake, and then mammal is worse than lizard.
Wait, I totally forgot. This is so funny. So I just spent New Year's Eve with my like cousins and my nieces and like everybody, and my little niece who is about she's about to turn 7. She was asking for a hamster, and her mom was like, absolutely not. This is just not happening. Like, we're not, get that out of your head. We're not getting a hamster. And I looked at her and I was like, do you know what the worst animal bite is in the world?
You know did not.
So I scared her out of getting a hamster.
She's going to be a grown adult and be like, I'm afraid of hamsters. And everyone's going to look at her like she's crazy.
But it was because of all of your comments letting us know.
I mean, it's valid. I'm not discounting that.
I think I saw at least, like, I saw several comments that said that, like, mammals and rodents are the worst. But somebody specifically said hamsters are the worst.
Yeah.
And I had read that comment within, like, 24 or 48 hours of seeing her.
Yeah.
And so she was like, I really want a hamster. And I was like, no, you don't.
Do you? Do you want to keep your fingers?
I was like, are you sure?
And they'll take it right off.
We literally, because my cousin straight up, she was like, oh yeah, show her a picture of their teeth. And I was like, sure. And so we were like, so her mom was fully on board for this because she did not want a hamster.
Your Google search is hamster teeth?
It was. I pulled it up and she goes, ew, those are scary. And I was like, yeah, you don't want one.
You're like, my work here is done.
I was like, you're welcome, cuz.
Trauma for the rest of your life on hamsters.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I just wanted to give, like, I thought that was very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And neither of us have been bit by beardies or the like. So.
That's a reason why I have no interest in like breeding rodents for my snakes or anything like that.
Yeah.
I don't.
No. They got those too big front teeth.
Nope. Mine come frozen and I'd never have to worry about that.
I feel like a bunny bite.
Ooh,
I feel like because they've got bigger jaws.
Yeah.
Right, but similar teeth.
My sister had a bunny for like 3 or 4 years, and she never got bit by him. I don't think that I know of.
I feel like, and I'm totally speaking about something I don't know just from what I've heard, but I feel like bunnies are one of those that like they're either super super docile or they're like a bunny from like
that's like
terrible.
It's kind of like cats. It's like you either have like the crazy ones or you have like the really chill cuddly ones.
Yeah,
there's kind of
no like bunnies are the same way.
I could see that.
Okay, I just wanted to like give my 2 cents on that because I found it very interesting to read through everyone else's bite stories.
It literally played a part of my New Year's Eve with my niece.
There you go. Okay, so the main topic for today is hydration, which is such a big one.
It's a big one, and it's funny because we actually thought that we had already done this episode because we've been talking about it like for so many times. So this is well overdue, but hydration is a big thing. It's super important. It's super huge. And it seems like something that would be really simple, but as per the world of reptiles, like the world of reptiles, nothing,
it's so nuanced.
Nothing is as simple as it seems. So hydration is not as simple as it sounds. So we'll get into all the nitty gritty.
This will be a very like education focused episode. But I think this will be helpful for anyone who's maybe considering other species. But with watering your reptiles, we do it for 2 things. I kind of consolidate it: hydration and humidity.
Yes.
So hydration would be like actually consuming the water. I feel like that's self-explanatory, but you know, like
hydrating your body.
Yeah, and then humidity. So there's things we do to help get our humidity levels where they need to be. So misters is one that I first wanted to talk about.
Huge. And there's hand misting or there's automatic misting systems.
Yes, and we did talk about this, I think, on the episode of like ways to save money with reptile keeping. Both of us are big fans of our Mist Kings.
Mine has not been set up for a long time, and
you're living in like the caveman days over here.
It's been almost like, I think it's been a little over a year where like I have not had my automatic misting sister set up, partially because I'm like having my own issues being productive and getting those little things done. More to come on that. But it's partially that, but it's also partially that like I want the enclosures to be, anyway, it's a whole thing, and I am missing it so bad. But in a different way, there are a lot of people who like to hand mist.
They enjoy it.
Yes,
I get that.
And while I deeply, deeply miss and need to get my automatic mister set up, I do enjoy the hand misting side because it does help you like
it's interaction.
You're checking in on them every time you're doing it. You're paying attention to what's going on. You're like analyzing the enclosure while you're spraying everything down. Like so there is like some benefits to that because I while I miss my automatic misting system and I'm going to get that set up very soon, it's been nice.
Yeah.
So.
But misters typically aren't directly for hydrating.
No.
They're most often for increasing the
Humidity.
humidity. Now, that can hydrate your reptile as a result because they're able to breathe in the moist air, the water droplets that are in the air. Make sure you have an accurate hygrometer to measure your humidity levels. A common mistake I see, though, with misters is people get their reptiles, they hear they're a tropical species, and they soak their enclosures. And they're just misting it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day. And I'm like, you got chill.
This is too much water exists.
Chill on the misting. They're like, how do I get rid of all the puddles and the sopping wet
Like,
substrate? And
stop
I'm like,
misting.
I'm like, how long are you misting for? And they're like, 5 minutes, 6 times a day. And I'm like, okay, it's not like a rainforest. We don't need to be,
You also have to remember there's a big difference when it comes to the humidity aspect of whether or not you're using live or fake plants, and also whether or not you have substrate.
There's so many things that are influencing humidity beyond just misting. And also you want to make sure your substrate, if you're choosing to use it, isn't getting like so dry that just like dust is flying everywhere. So you have to find the balance of like, but you could literally just pour water into your substrate to have rehydrate it. You don't have to be misting, and sometimes you have to because your mist just gets the top of it and doesn't get.
I was going to say, especially like if you have bioactive enclosures, like for example, in like arboreal geckos, right, is more of what I'm thinking of versus like from the chameleon aspect. Arboreal geckos, like you usually have a drainage layer and then the substrate on top. So a lot of times, like I would find like a corner that the water will go straight down into the drainage system. And so then it'll get all soaked up by like those drainage rocks down at the bottom. And then that'll go up through the soil so that way your soil, your substrate is getting hydrated from the bottom up instead of just that top layer. So that's always
super important for our snake keepers, right? Who our bellies are literally on that substrate.
Scale rot is a thing. It exists for all of our like ground dwelling critters. So that goes for snakes, bearded dragons, blue-tongued skinks, anything like that. They can be really susceptible to scale rot on their stomachs. So if their soil is just constantly soaking wet or with those puddles, like you were saying, that's going to lead to scale rot.
So don't be afraid to let your enclosures dry out. They need dry, they need moist. Like it has to be a cycle.
It's a cycle.
And every species is going to have different humidity requirements. And where you live is also going to impact. If you live somewhere drier, then you may need to be misting for longer durations, not more frequently, just longer durations than someone who lives in a humid environment. So it's really hard when you're reading care guides and it says mist this many times a day for this long, but maybe you need more, maybe you need less, maybe in the winter time your heater kicks on so that pulls out a lot of the moisture versus the summer where it naturally gets more humid where you live, then you may need to adjust it. So just recognize that those are recommendations, and you may need to customize it based off of your environment, your enclosure, your species.
And like while you're doing that research, like some of the questions I get asked the most often are, is, X wattage bulb the right wattage that I need for my, ball python? Or people will say like, I'm misting 3 times a day for this amount of time. Is that right? And I'm like, and I feel so bad when I get those questions.
Maybe. I don't know.
My answer is literally, I don't know. I can't really help you because it has to do with like your environment.
So true.
So it's like you can like take recommendations from people, and this is just part of like the learning curve of reptiles, is that like you get to a point where you kind of know and understand like what the soil needs to look like specifically for it to be, it's like, it's all these things. So just know like whatever those recommendations are that you're getting, that's great. That's a great place to start, but you have to like also figure it out for yourself in a sense, which is so hard to explain to people.
And we will talk about later in this episode signs of hydration and dehydration, because that's really what you should be gauging your stuff off of. Also, real quick on misting, if you're using plants, don't rely on your misters to water your plants. I always find myself having to go around and like pour water into my plants directly, because just like with your substrate, the mister is only getting that surface level, and so most plants need
down in the soil, which for the bioactive enclosures that have that drainage layer, that's why you got to make sure that drainage layer has some water in it too, so it can filter back up.
Totally. Okay, so misters are a great tool.
Love them.
Nothing against if you're doing it by hand, but automatic misting systems, love those. Another one I want to talk about are drippers.
Yes, I forget about drippers because honestly, it's really,
Does anyone else use them?
It's pretty much only chameleons.
Okay, I'll be very quick on this. So a dripper is like, you can buy drippers.
Yeah.
Don't waste your money. Mm-hmm. Just get like a plastic cup or a container, poke a hole in it.
Yeah.
But you put it on top of your enclosure, and then it drips water into it. And this is an idea of like creating movement.
Yeah.
Because chameleons are a species that don't typically drink still water, which we'll get into for the other species. But because they're attracted to a movement, this is a great way for us to provide hydration. But really, they're not being used as often anymore because if you're nighttime humidity, because with chameleons we have a spike at night, then they're breathing in that moisture at nighttime, being hydrated, dry out through the daytime, and they don't really need the dripper. I just wanted to call it out that it is a hydration method.
Well, and I will say too, because you were specifically talking about chameleons are one of those species that has a hard time with any water that isn't moving. You know, they kind of need that movement. I'm pretty sure, and as per any time I ever talk about bearded dragons, I know nothing. I don't know what I'm talking about. I can give substrate recommendations, and that is literally about it. But I think I remember hearing and reading and seeing somewhere on the interwebs that bearded dragons also sometimes have a hard time with still water.
Okay.
So I think that can kind of vary. So I do think maybe bearded dragons could benefit from drippers too, but somebody tell me if I'm wrong, because there's a high possibility that I am.
We need like an honorary.
We need like a bearded dragon spokesperson, because we are not it.
For sure. Absolutely. So staying on the track of like moving water with drippers, my recommendation, but people tend to, especially new keepers, use waterfalls or water fountains to try and simulate those. And those are don't do it. Not recommended. They look so cool, especially the skull one. But you know what I'm talking about?
But they harbor so much bad bacteria. They're so hard to clean.
And that's it. Because like people hear like the bacteria stuff and they're like, okay, but I'm just going to clean it all the time. And like that, it is just a risk.
Yes. So my recommendation on those things is I always tell people, if you know how to DIY a waterfall that is very easy for you to clean, go for it. Like,
I love that.
I've heard of people doing that. I've seen some people do it on TikTok. It's super cool.
Yeah.
And they can do it in a way that they know it's super easy to clean. But like all the store-bought ones, they have so many like nooks and crannies. You like I'm sorry, even if you're cleaning it every day, you're not getting all up in that corner where there's like black mold. Yeah. Right?
And it's just a risk. Because then if your reptile drinks from it, like the idea of a waterfall inherently is not bad. It's the execution and the maintenance of it. And it just takes like one dead cricket to get in there, or poop to land in there, or whatever it is, and then your reptile is drinking that. And there are alternative safe methods, so it's not like that's our only option, which is why I don't recommend them. And like that's why I'm like, a dripper is much safer because it's external, it's outside the enclosure, and it's way easier to clean.
Yeah. And I will say too, I don't know if this is like off track or what, but basically like I said earlier, my head's kind of thinking mostly like arboreal tropical geckos in my head. And those are ones that are, I don't know if it's that they're not great with like moving water or not or whatever, but most people don't really leave them like a cup full of water, because they will typically, if you're using a mist system, arboreal geckos like crested geckos, New Caledonian, anything New Caledonian, they'll usually drink their water off the sides of the enclosure walls.
Good call out.
From the mist getting onto the walls and dripping.
Or on like the little leaves. I love watching Pluto with his little tongue.
It's the cutest.
Seeing a crested gecko eat or drink, and then they look at their eyeball.
I know, it's so cute.
The best.
It's so cute. Gosh. I could geek out on how cute that is all day.
Yes, but the little droplets on the walls. And I like strategically point my mister to hit the walls.
Me too.
I guess that's a pro tip. Like if you are going to go to the automatic misting system route, put your nozzles on the front part of your enclosure so then they can point to the back.
And if you are hand misting, I would always hand mist the walls, like we just said, for that purpose, but then also make sure that you are hand misting the substrate and all of, like, for me, I always make sure that all the cork bark is a little bit wet.
Yep, because that's going to maintain the moisture for that humidity. Yep, that's a great call out.
Just if you are hand misting, those are the places to, like,
no, that's so smart, because I go on autopilot and I do all those things. But I
you forget that it
I don't
used
think
to be
about
something you thought about. Yeah.
No, I wait till my cork bark turns color.
Yeah, no, me too.
From the light brown to the dark brown. And then I do it like a little extra to like really get.
And these are the little things that you learn over time.
Yes, because it's going to hold that moisture. Yeah. So then when your humidity crashes in the morning or something like that, it can try and maintain it for longer. So
just pro tips for all of our hand misters.
Yes, I love that. Okay. I think I feel good on the waterfalls. Yeah. Anything else to add?
No, that was my main thing is like I've seen people DIY them, but only if like you really know how to take it apart and clean it really efficiently.
Okay.
Have you guys checked out the Palm Street app yet? Pangea is going live in the Palm Street app every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. They'll be doing giveaways every 10 minutes and geckos are starting at $1. They also have the cheapest shipping for reptiles on the Palm Street app, and they don't even charge extra shipping for additional geckos. And don't miss their free shipping on dry goods supplies purchased in their store.
One more for our arboreal species, and then we can move into the other chunk of hydration is foggers.
Yes.
So this is, again, typically for arboreal, but like a lot of other keepers use them. Like I know frog keepers use them.
I was going to say amphibians.
Yeah, this is kind of like
I'm actually probably going to be utilizing in Kermit's new enclosure. I do think I want to add a fogger to it just because I think she'll really benefit from it. So amphibians are big on the foggers too.
Yeah. And so a lot of new keepers, but like what's the difference between a mister and a fogger and a dripper? So hopefully this is helping like make
those
sense
nuances.
of
which one's which.
A mister will be actual water droplets, and a fog, just think of like a fog machine from Halloween, right? That's what it is. It's a tube that typically we run up into a taller enclosure, or in the instances of amphibians, maybe it's a little wider, but you want it to come from the top, so then the fog will roll down into the enclosure and kind of fill it up that way. If you were to stick it at the bottom, then the fog's really only going to hit the floor of it. It's not going to go up, if that makes sense. You gotta have gravity working in your favor. But foggers are another one that are notorious to be clean because you have that tubing, and it's the kind of tubing that's the like expandable, so it's got all those ridges in there. So that's my only thing with foggers.
You just have to
that can be hard to clean.
You clean them. You just got to really clean them out. But they can be super beneficial. For amphibians in particular, I only have one amphibian, but amphibians are known to kind of like essentially like breathe through their skin, and so they need that moisture in the air. And foggers are, in my opinion, one of the best ways to provide that, specifically for like those kind of species, because it really makes the whole air just immediately higher humidity.
It's like 100% humidity.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick. And then they can kind of soak all that in through their skin so that they're really well hydrated, because they need more hydration than most animals.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. With chameleons, we only use them at nighttime. Right. A common mistake is to use them during the daytime. And I get it. They look so cool.
Yeah,
but
you just want them on.
Really, you want to avoid hot, humid environments. So if your heat bulb's on, then really you shouldn't be using your frogger. But they can be fantastic for getting that humidity spike at night that I talked about. But they're not required. And I think a lot of people get caught up that these are all tools. And it goes back to what we were saying earlier of as long as you can maintain your hydration and your humidity for your environment, for your enclosure, for your species, you're good.
Yeah, no, right? Truly. That's like, it's hard to figure it out. There's a lot of options, a lot of different steps, all the different things.
These are all tools in your tool belt though. So I personally don't use foggers for my chameleons, but that's because the humidity in my reptile room sits at 50%.
So you're good.
By itself. So then if I do my nighttime misting and with my automatic system, it can go off at 1 in the morning or whatever it is. And then that gives me my spike and then it maintains it and then mists again in the morning. Like it's got its own little cycle system worked out.
No, and for me, I'm just thinking through like my more tropical species. When I had my automatic mister set up, and I pretty much just mimic that with the hand misting, is it basically goes off like every night for it. I think it went off for like maybe like 45 seconds to 50 seconds, I think. And then once in the morning for about 45, 50 seconds. And all of that was before or after the lights turned on or off.
Yeah.
So it was always that kind of rotation.
And not another plug for the Mist King, but that's what's really cool about that one in particular as compared to other misting systems is you can literally customize it to the second.
Oh yeah.
You could have it go off for 43 seconds.
For 7 seconds. For
whatever
like,
you want, as many times as you want. Like that's the beauty of it.
So
You're
nice.
not stuck to the other misters that are like 30 seconds every 12 hours or something, where it's limited on what you can do. So again, love.
We love the Mist
But
King.
I understand it's like the most expensive mister, but it's an investment. Like,
It's
I've had
so
mine
worth
for over
it.
6 years, and it's still going strong.
Oh, I mean, mine hasn't been set up for over a year, but we'll see. We'll see very soon.
I have high confidence it'll be
I'm
just
sure it's
fine.
going to be fine. I even had, this is so funny, back when I first got Barney, I actually had what was called an aqua zamp.
Oh, yes. I remember when I came over and I saw yours, and I was like, what is this archaic thing?
It was, but it was something that I had actually bought secondhand on the Chameleon forums, going right back over to them. So I had actually, this was before I was posting on social media. This was I was not deep into the reptile community like I am now. And I found the Chameleon forums, and somebody was, I hadn't even heard of Mist King. So somebody was selling an Aquazamp for I think $75. And I was like, send it on over. I used that, and I actually think I had that motor for it for a long time, and it's probably still kicking somewhere. I don't know.
And that's the thing too. If you have different species, you may need different misting systems because the Mist King can only go for whatever it's hooked up to.
One duration. So for example, I'm trying to think of a primary example. So the arboreal geckos, like I said, would do that 45 minutes in the evening and in the morning.
45 seconds.
Oh God.
Just to be so clear.
Thank you.
You have a lot of puddles.
Wow. Big slip up there. Sorry, guys. Seconds. Yeah. So that it would go that way. If I had, say, another animal that only needed one misting a day.
Barney had a separate, that's why he had that misting system.
Thank you. That was the example I was looking for. Was Barney. Barney had different misting requirements.
Because his would go off for a couple of minutes. But if you did that with the geckos, then their enclosures would be
drown.
soaked. They need nighttime misting. Barney needed both. So being able to have that customization. So my crested gecko is on one Mist King, and my chameleons are on a separate Mist King.
And that's what it was Barney was still on the Aquazamp.
Yes.
And then all my others were on the Mist King.
Yes.
So it was So you may need more than one depending on the species.
And something to consider as you're thinking about what other species you want to bring in is their humidity requirements and everything else in misting and stuff.
Yep.
So I also wanted to bring up humidifiers, as we're talking about foggers, is sometimes people will utilize humidifiers when they live in drier climates to bring up the overall humidity
of the entire room.
Of the room. Yeah. So this can be really good, especially if you have a lot of species that are around the same humidity levels, or if you're just sitting at 20-30% humidity and you need something that's closer to 50-60%, then that's something.
It's just a way to help your maintenance go a little bit easier.
And alternatively, a dehumidifier for all of our Florida keepers, right, where they're working against the humidity, where it's already 70% and they need it down to 50% or whatever. So those can be really good.
Yeah.
Good tools. Okay.
Super helpful.
Water bowls. This is the fun. I don't know. Other stuff's fun too, but I feel like water bowls is fun for me because I don't use water bowls. So it's I'm ooh.
Yeah. I will say the only animals that I use water bowls for are my terrestrial geckos, my snakes, my blue-tongued skink, and my legless lizard. And Kermit. So honestly, most of mine, except for my arboreal species.
I know, because when I pet sit for you, I have to go around and fill
all the water bowls.
All the water bowls.
She's like, this is so stupid. I don't have to fill up any water bottles at my house.
I don't have to fill up water bowls because all my guys are arboreal and very tropical. Yeah. So I don't deal with water bowls.
Yeah.
But that's something that's interesting. So I first want to talk about the different size of water bowls.
Yes.
How do you pick an appropriate size for the species?
That's hard. So when it comes to that, I would say specifically snakes, you always want to make sure that the water bowl is big enough for them to completely submerge in if they wanted to. And that is that's because a lot of times some snakes will want to soak. And if they, for example, are going into shed or something, they might utilize that water bowl. They might not. Sometimes that actually can be a really big indicator for mites. If they are an animal that doesn't usually soak in their water bowl often and suddenly they're soaking in the water bowl all the time, maybe check out and see if they have mites. But because of that, you always want to make sure for snakes that the water bowl is big enough for them to fully wrap up, curl up, and soak in. And then for some of your other species, like my leopard gecko, my African fat-tailed gecko, my blue-tongued skink, my legless lizard, those aren't animals that really should be soaking at all. And so for that reason, their water bowls, it really doesn't matter the size, just all of them are a little smaller. They're drinking
out of it.
Yeah.
So I know something that snake keepers do, because sometimes it can be hard to find a snake water bowl that's big enough. People will use bowls that aren't even snake related.
Taz is currently using some like what is it, a Pyrex like Tupperware. He's using one of those. It's it's a glass one. It's not like one of the plastic ones or anything, I don't think. But I've used the Pyrex glass like water bowl, not water bowls, but Tupperware.
Yeah, as a bowl. Yeah, I've also noticed that people don't really use plastic bowls.
No, and
they're all like ceramic-y.
So my preference for water bowls are either ceramic. I'm a big fan of the ceramic ones just because they just don't get super dirty super easily. They're pretty well, and they're easy to clean. They always come out.
Yeah, you don't have like
nice
the
and
watermarks on them and stuff, and get all icky.
I personally prefer ceramic. I also really like some of the Reptile branded like corner ones. Mm-hmm. You know, they've got some of those that are like the corner ones, and it's like a really hard plastic that looks like rocks.
Yeah.
Those are thick. And so it's not, I will say, those, because it's plastic, they can collect a little bit more like mold or algae or things than like ceramic or glass.
A little more absorbent.
Yes.
Than something like ceramic or glass. That makes sense.
Exactly. So I always prefer glass or ceramic, but I do like those like rock Reptile branded ones too. Those can be great. You just need to be a little bit more careful when cleaning them. The glass and the ceramic ones, you can just throw that in the dishwasher. You're good to go. Like that's why it's my personal favorite, is the ease of cleaning. I just never have to worry about that. I wash them. I fill them up, rinse them out multiple times a week, but I probably throw them in the dishwasher maybe like once a week or so, like just whenever I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, like a super clean. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's something that's kind of hard for people to fathom, because most other animals drink from bowls. So when we have reptile species that don't drink from bowls, because the amount of times I've seen chameleon closures with like a water bowl, or a crested gecko with like a water bowl. And that's not to say they won't drink from those things.
It's just more it's less likely.
Yeah, and it's not natural for their behavior. Like if you have to train your animal to drink from a bowl or a glass or whatever, then I'm
ridiculous. Why would you do that?
Is this really the most natural if you're having to like do that?
We should be like meeting the animals where they are, which is in nature, and we should be trying to mimic what is natural for them, not forcing them to do what is more convenient for us. Right? Yes. I think that's critical.
So I want to get into soaking, because again, this is like
thing.
And with that, baths, right? So soaking in water bowls, but also baths, because as someone who has like a boreal species, I don't have amphibians, I don't have reptiles that take baths or soak. It's kind of one of those things I'm like, should they be doing that? Are there instances where like it makes sense and not? So like talk me through that.
Okay. So I'm pretty firmly against soaking in baths for like most reptiles. I don't really think it's necessary, hardly at all, frankly. I think if you have an animal that is having a really rough shed, or is having like a really hard time getting shed off, first off, you need to know whether or not that animal is a dry shedder or a like moist shedder. I don't know if that's the right term.
It's a good, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So for example, bearded dragons and chameleons are dry shedders. They are not animals that need additional humidity or moisture in order to get that skin off, right?
It'd actually be counterproductive.
Yeah, it actually can make the formerly dry skin kind of glue to their scales, which like isn't good. Right. So therefore, if you have a bearded dragon or if you have a chameleon, please do not give them baths. They really don't need them.
But it's always the bearded dragons.
It's always the bearded dragons. We're really sorry to our bearded dragon friends, but it's always you guys just like soak in your beardies, and I like don't understand. What I will say.
And I don't have one, so I'm like, are you supposed to do that?
I feel a little bit bad, like kind of judging it, but like, so here's my thoughts. And if all the bearded dragon owners want to like crucify me in the comments, that's fine. That's fine. You can do that. I will happily admit that I'm wrong. If any of you guys like have like accurate info, please send it. But my thoughts are, bearded dragons in particular, they are known for being notorious for massive, disgusting poops, right?
Yes, it's always the poops too.
It's always the poops. So what I think makes sense, if I had a bearded dragon and and I can almost guarantee with bearded dragons and how long and thick their tails are, when they're pooping, they're dragging that sucker through the poop and they're getting poopy. And if that is the case, please bathe them.
Oh, but then it's a cleanliness
a cleanliness thing. So my thought is, if it's a cleanliness thing, if you are trying to wash off excrement, please do that.
From your poopy lizard.
So please do that if that is why you're doing it. I've also heard of bearded dragon owners who put them in a bath with or a sink with like the water running because for whatever reason their bearded dragon does not drink still water. If that is the case, I kind of understand that, but I don't know what the solution is for that. That's the one that I'm at a little bit of a standstill because that still feels very unnatural to me. And so I don't know is my answer.
Because then you do like the custom waterfall situation that you can like help keep clean.
But the problem with that is bearded dragons need lower humidity. And if you have a waterfall in the enclosure, you're spiking humidity all day.
Right. Yeah.
So
the waterfall wouldn't raise it too much as if you would like spraying it down.
Yeah, it depends. So
I also see them soaking to help them poop too.
I've heard of that
I've seen that. Yeah.
And I've just never had one of my pets struggle with pooping.
No.
So I just don't understand.
Neptune held on to a poop for a good 3 weeks. And let me tell you, the turd that came out should have gone in a museum. That thing set some records. It was
massive.
You could tell he didn't poop in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I've never had like huge
but
issues.
But he did it just fine on his own.
Yeah.
I didn't need to intervene.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard similar things with like snakes, basically that like sometimes if they haven't pooped in a long time, you can soak them. So like, here's the thing. If you're doing it for like, urinary or like waste purposes,
I just don't know.
I don't know enough about that specific situation because I've never experienced it. But if you're doing it for cleanliness, that's fine. But like, no reptile should be just like in a bathtub for a long amount of time trapped in there. I just don't think there's any real reason why that should be happening long term or even on like a frequent, consistent basis.
I saw a picture of a chameleon in a tub, like a rubber, like a plastic tub, with like a couple of inches of water. Chameleon plopped in there and the lid on top. I was so confused.
Confused and concerned.
And it was vet prescribed.
What?
Because the amount of times I see vets recommending soaking like chameleons is just to like help hydrate them, which I would like to circle back to the fact that chameleons are not amphibians and do not absorb through their skin.
No.
And so I saw that recently and was a little shocked.
That is so interesting.
Just a couple of inches, just like sitting there. Is bizarre.
So if you're a veterinarian and you prescribe this, please let us know your reasoning or your like professional education because I would love to know.
I feel like it's outdated recommendations because we used to put our chameleons in showers as well.
I did that with Barney when he was sick. Neptune. We've done it.
But that is no longer recommended. Yeah. I don't know. So, okay, humid hides is the other one I wanted to talk on.
Okay, so humid hides are one that I recommend for almost any, realistically, here's the thing. The majority of reptiles that are terrestrial, let's clarify that. Most terrestrial species, so I'm thinking leopard geckos, African fat-tailed geckos, blue-tongued skinks, snakes, all of those species, it is pretty consistent that they need 3 types of hides. They need a hide on the warm side of the enclosure, they need a hide on the cool side of the enclosure, and then they need a humid hide somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. And so that is like pretty standard across the board for most terrestrial reptile species. So with that being said, humid hides are something that you should always have for those species that need them. So it's not necessarily something that you only do when they like need humidity. It should be always available to them, in my opinion. But humid hides are really, really amazing, specifically for when they're shedding. It gives them one specific space that allows them to hydrate the parts of their skin or scales or whatever that they need to be able to shed properly. So that is like one of the things that it's not necessarily for their like hydration, but it is for like their
that goes into the humidity and overall health and
like it's
well-being.
It's a part of their environment that they need in order to shed efficiently and consistently. And also it just gives them a place to go if they are needing like a little bit of like a humidity spike throughout their day. It's like, all right, I'll go breathe in some good humidity for my respiratory system in my hide. So that I don't want to use it as something that like you only bring out if there's an emergency or if they're having a really bad shed, then you give them a humid hide. They should always have access to a humid hide.
Being proactive, so it's a part of their
Yes.
ongoing
Yes.
care and everything else.
But if you do have an like a terrestrial species or like for example like a ball python or any of the geckos I mentioned before, like anything like that, if they are having a really rough shed or if like they have some shed stuck on their toenails or something, the humid hide that is recommended for that is what you were talking about with the chameleon, not necessarily with like water in the bottom, but with like a warm damp paper towel.
Yep, something that will have that moisture.
Yeah, and then put them in there for an hour or so and then let their kind of toenails or wherever the shed is kind of stuck, it'll help with that.
Soften it up. Yeah.
So,
that makes sense to me.
So there's like the humid hides that are good for shedding like that, and then there's the ones that they should just always have no matter what, because it will help, like you said, be proactive. So.
Yeah. No, this is, I think, so helpful for anyone, because you can also be like, why do they
need that?
Yeah. So the other thing I want to talk about is types of water to be used. Mm-hmm. So I personally use filtered water. My house comes with a whole filtration system built in separately from like my sink. Yeah.
Ugh, being in a rental, I do not have that luxury. Man.
It came with the house and I was like, cool, I'll use this for my reptiles.
Literally like one of my first orders of business when Logan and I like buy a house is that we will be putting in a reverse osmosis water filter in the entire house. That is like my 2 rules is when I move into a house, all the walls better be a blank slate, white, no gray, no cream, white only, and a filter system.
A lady of simple taste, ladies and gents.
I know what I like.
So yeah, RO water, also known as reverse osmosis water, is commonly used. People try to avoid tap water because you just don't know. And that's one of those questions where like, hey, can I use the tap water? I'm like, I don't know where you live.
It depends. It entirely depends on where you live. Because I get people in, Germany or the UK or wherever that are like, my tap water is incredible. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's really cool for you. Super happy for you.
Then that's great.
Us in America, our tap water is not the greatest. There's some gross stuff in that I don't even drink it. So and if I don't drink it, I'm certainly not giving it to my pets. So
you buy your water.
So I do, specifically for the reptiles. I always buy either, it kind of depends on what's at the store, if I'm being honest, but I get those 5-gallon jugs that have the little like dispenser on it. So it's like really easy to use, but I get those and I either get like spring water, I'll do reverse osmosis water too, or like distilled water, like one of those 3 usually. I typically prefer the spring water just because it's said to have like more of the natural minerals that reptile needs in it. But if you do reverse osmosis water, one of the biggest critiques with that is that reverse osmosis water, the process of that RO takes out all of the natural minerals that reptiles need. And that is like one of the issues with like our tap water these days is a lot of those minerals have been depleted and pulled out of our water system because of all the filtration. And so we need more minerals in our water too. So be looking into that for your own body. But reptiles need those minerals too. So there are different ways that you can remineralize the RO water if you want to use that. So there are a lot of different things. There are little droplets that you can use. There, you can literally sprinkle like some like Celtic sea salt in there.
That's so cool.
I usually do a little bit of the Celtic sea salt because that's what I do for my water personally.
Yeah.
So you can't tell me that's like, it's like if I'm doing something wrong for me, then I'm doing it wrong for my pets. We're all treated the same here.
Yes.
So, but that is something that I think is important to note, just because a lot of people, I've received a lot of like critique and conversation and like educational conversation about minerals and reverse osmosis. So
I wouldn't have even thought about it.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like, but that's just a whole thing. It's been discourse that I've seen online. And just to go kind of into that like same realm, if you are using tap water, if tap water is the only thing that you have access to, something that I put in my water for my reptiles, no matter what, always, if they're getting water, it has this in it, is the ReptiSafe.
Yep.
It's in the blue bottle.
Yep.
And it's kind of like how if you've ever kept fish, you have to condition the water with water conditioner. This is basically just water conditioner that's essentially for reptiles. And so it's very similar to what you would use for like a fish tank or things like that.
Yep.
So, and it just helps kind of take out some of, if there are like toxins or bad things in there, it kind of helps like remove those.
Yeah, that I would absolutely be using that if I was using tap water.
Yeah.
Also, if you're using your misting system and you're investing in that, then you want to protect the parts that go with it, and like the hard water can build up on your misters and clog them, and we want to avoid that.
That in particular is actually the reason I initially first started using like the spring water or the like reverse osmosis water, because both of those two help eliminate not only the parts and pieces of your misting system, it also, the selfish benefit for me personally is that it helps eliminate the hard water stains on your enclosure walls.
Yes.
It's amazing. So you don't have to scrape them off with a razor blade as often. So that's just a little pro tip that I like to use, is it removes some of that stuff.
But neither of us are water experts. So like we are not the people to ask in the comments of like, if I have this, if that's okay. Yeah. Like, so sorry.
Yeah.
We cannot help you.
No. But
take this as a good, like a springboard, a good starting point to then do further research by people who maybe are more familiar, or do research on your particular area and your water and what your species needs. Because again, an amphibian is completely different in their water requirements than a species that's maybe just drinking it versus having to absorb it through sensitive skin and things of that nature.
Well, the number one reason I started using the RO water, aside from the selfish, like, mineral deposits and everything, was also because I had one amphibian. And I was like, all right, well, if this misting system is going to the amphibian who is extra susceptible to water quality, I got to make sure I got good quality water going through 100%. That whole thing. So that's a big part of it. And just to reiterate how much we are not experts, the whole reason I just gave that spiel about minerals is because I got obliterated online for recommending reverse osmosis water because it didn't have minerals in it. So I am still learning. Yes. I'm still figuring it out.
I didn't even, the amount of times I recommended RO water and did not stipulate with like, and don't forget your minerals. Yeah. I didn't know that till literally just now.
Yeah. So again, not experts.
No, and certainly not on water, of all things.
God, no. It's like, I use what I think is best, and if it's not, then I'll change it. I don't know.
Yeah. But like I said, like, this should be a good springboard, a good starting point on hydration and humidity and all the different tools for your species, because there is so much that goes into it.
Yeah. Always.
I know we had other segments planned for this episode.
I feel like it's been a minute.
I think we've talked too much about water. So we will save our segment for a future episode. It's a fun one.
Yes.
It was a fun girly thing.
It was a fun girly thing. So we'll talk about it in the next episode. We've just gone a little too far today.
Yeah. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope this was helpful. I hope this like sparks your interest in maybe doing further research for your species. As always, you can follow the podcast at the Wild Type Podcast. Yes. On all the things, you can follow me, Neptune the Chameleon, all things social.
Lyssa's lizards everywhere.
And we will catch you guys in the next episode.
Bye, girlies.